Hi everyone, today I want to talk to you about my new love and obsession with Maud Lewis, the Canadian folk artist. My whole place is covered with folk art in general. It's something I've always loved, and a big part of it is because in Romania, at least in the little village I'm from, folklore and folk art is very prominent. I'll try to get into the definition of folk art a little bit later, and I definitely like to make more videos about folk art. It's something I'm really passionate about. But in this video, I just want to talk about Maud Lewis. She is an amazing Canadian folk artist who passed away in the 70s, but she's kind of remained a legend. And recently there was a movie made about her called Maudie. I'll talk about that a little bit later too. I want to take you kind of through my personal journey, discovering her artwork and a little bit about her, but most importantly, I'm going to share with you some resources and books if you would also like to read about her, because she's just fascinating. I am planning a trip very soon to Halifax just to see her artwork in person. I've missed it when it came to Ontario a few years ago. Without further ado, let me just get started on what sparked my interest. My really good friend from Halifax came for a visit, and she brought me this book called Maud Lewis Colors. She said, I think you're going to love this. My friend knows me really well, and as soon as I flipped through this book, I fell in love. There's something about Maud Lewis's paintings that are just sort of childlike, but they capture a simplicity and wonder at the same time. They're vivacious and bright, and there's something innocent about it all, and it just captures the heart and spirit of a place in a very particular time. I look at these paintings and I feel like I'm in a different place, that I'm in this very local, charming village. My first instinct was to try to copy one of her paintings. I wanted to see if I could also have fun with paint and just kind of explore and see if it brings me joy, just to focus on something sort of colorful. I usually work with paints that are a lot darker and darker tones and more realism type. So it was kind of fun to explore and try to capture somebody else's artwork. My issue here was that in trying to copy her exact painting, I wasn't exactly having fun myself in the same way I would if I was trying to make a painting from real life while being simplistic and colorful and vivacious. Instead, I was trying to mimic her artwork. Even though it was so much fun painting, I did kind of miss the spontaneity of doing it myself from real life. But it was just an amazing experience to work with brighter colors in general. So after that, I became sort of fascinated and I wanted to learn more. So I put a bunch of holds at the library, all to do with Maud Lewis, and I also bought a few books on my own. The first book that arrived was The Illuminated Life of Maud Lewis. And this is written by Lance Woolaver, and he is kind of an amazing writer who dedicated a lot of his literary career to Maud Lewis. He is a local of the same place in Nova Scotia that she's from. He takes you through her life in kind of an overview in this book. Now, one of the things I do want to read to you from this book, it's something I really liked, and I'm going to put the text on the screen. It's his definition of folk art. Folk art glories in self-expression, and the artist is generally considered to be self-taught. The artwork of Maud Lewis epitomizes the best of this tradition by illustrating an art form that has emerged from the heart and soul of Canada, free from the trappings of high art. It is spontaneous and tangible extension of the life and experiences of its creator. This is the art of the ordinary person, and it reflects a revisiting of values, a re-examination of the essence of life, and a purity of purpose and vision that provides one of the most exciting avenues of visual expression in the world today. After this book, he wrote a much more detailed biography of Maud Lewis, which is this one, and it's called The Heart on the Door. This is all of the text you need of her entire life. It was a very sad life, and she lived most of her life in extreme poverty. Maud Lewis was born in a middle-class sort of family, and she was born with deformities through her life, she also developed rheumatoid arthritis, which made it very difficult for her to paint in general. It was very difficult for her to make friends, to navigate life. She was sort of taken advantage of in her teen years and had a pregnancy out of wedlock, which resulted in her being forced to give this baby away. This is a detail that I don't really want to talk too much about, but it is something that the film touches upon and kind of sees it as a sensitive spot. But this book kind of looks at her entire life. As an adult, however, she sees a sign in the paper where a man named Everett Lewis is looking for a housekeeper. Now, when you think of a housekeeper, you probably imagine a much bigger house, but instead you find that there's a very, very little house. It reminds me of Thoreau's cabin, to be honest, with the exception that it has a loft where the bed was and some stairs leading up to it. And she moves into this house, they get married, and from here starts a very interesting artistic career, but this is also where she spends the majority of her life. So while they are very, very poor, she does kind of obtain some paints and starts painting the things in the house, the walls, the stairs, just the door, everything that she can possibly paint, objects, she starts painting them. And in addition to that, she starts making cards. And when she makes these cards, she charges about 5 cents a piece. I think her mother prior to that had charged similarly. She also kind of follows her husband around as he's making sales. He sells fish, and he works in several little places where he volunteers, and she kind of follows him along and sells her artwork in the process. She also made the sign out front in front of the house, which was right by a main street, where she said, paintings for sale. The sign looked a lot like this. Now, what this is, in this book in itself, is an exhibition catalog from the McMichael Art Gallery in Ontario. A few years ago, they had her artworks traveling. This is more of a coffee table book. So if you're interested in just obtaining her artwork and to have people flip through it as they visit you, this doesn't have much text with the exception of a very brief introduction. The majority of it is just paintings, and they are beautiful and amazing, but it is an exhibition catalog. I just wanted to show you the paintings for sale sign, which she also had out front. She lived in this house her entire life, and when she passed away, Everett continued to live there until he eventually got murdered when someone tried to rob their house. And over time, the house kind of deteriorated, and people in Halifax or in Nova Scotia were preoccupied with how beautiful this house is and the fact that it's an art monument in Canada now because of her legacy and how she became a bit of a folk hero in town. So they made a big project where, one, they wanted to collect all of her artwork. So they put out a call asking people to send in their artworks that they had purchased from her over the years so we can have a more comprehensive collection. But also a big restoration project to take this house and move it into the art gallery of Nova Scotia. So this book, The Painted House of Maud Lewis, Conserving a Folk Art Treasure by Laurie Hamilton, captures the entire conservation process. And this is fascinating as a librarian, but also I think for anyone interested in art galleries or preservation, conservation, and museum studies. This is such an amazing work because you get to see the process of what it takes to move something without damaging it while preserving it and conserving it over time, and what it took. It's a love project. It's included so many people in the neighborhood. I think what scared me personally was just seeing how fast the house had deteriorated prior to this project starting and the urgency to preserve it. Another book that I got out of the library is Brighten, the Corner Where You Are. This is a novel by Bruneau, and this is an imagining of Maud Lewis's life from her perspective and the ways she tried to see the beauty in everything, and even in her saddest moments, how she looked at the the bright parts of life and the beauty of them. And it is fiction, but it's heavily inspired. I would even call it historical fiction, I suppose. But it's beautiful, it's cute, and it's cozy. Last book that I want to talk to you about is called Our Maud, The Life, Art, and Legacy of Maud Lewis by Ray Cronin for the Art Gallery of Nova Scotia. He's the former Art Gallery of Nova Scotia director and CEO. I've already pre-ordered his next book, which is entirely focused on folk art in Nova Scotia. But this book, being written most recently of the whole bunch, includes kind of everything. It includes the conservation project, it includes how it's been received. It also includes parts of the movie Maudie, which came out in 2016. It features Ethan Hawke as Everett Lewis and Sally Hawkins as Maud Lewis. It is such a beautiful film. It's simple and it focuses on the day-to-day. You get to really sit with what it must have been like to be Maud Lewis. But back to this book. So this, Our Maud, will kind of have everything. So if you want just one book of all of them, I would recommend this one just because it's the newest and the most comprehensive. Now, when I opened this, the first thing that got my attention was this dustpan. So Maud Lewis liked to paint the things in her house. Sorry for the glare, but this is a metallic dustpan. Long story short, I painted my own because I love this so much. The shape of them is kind of different, but I couldn't help it. Even though this was black to begin with, I had to paint it white and then yellow and then do all the folksy detail and kind of improvise a little bit. I also went up this dustpan. I did read in one of the books that once she painted something, that something was no longer used for what was intended in the first place. I do intend to use my dustpan further, even though it's pretty now. I'm not gonna keep it just as an art piece, but I couldn't help myself just because it was so cute and I had to try it. The only thing I've purchased recently too is kind of this journal with the birds, which is also kind of the cover for this. This seems to be a pretty popular one. That is kind of my journey with Maud Lewis and her artwork. I am nerding out over this. I love her so much. I don't know if I've said that enough times, but I really hope that other people discover her artwork as well. And I invite you to please just try out some of the books I've mentioned, or just go online and look at some of her artwork. And if you do find yourself in Canada, in Halifax, make a point to go to the art gallery and see her artwork and the house. I mean, I haven't been yet, but if you get there before me, enjoy. I will try my best to film my experience if I can, and I will definitely be talking more about folk art in the future. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!